And this is Ariel, one half of Soju for Two, and welcome back to my channel. It's definitely been a while since I made my last video, and as I mentioned before, I don't really want to talk about Korean dramas so much on my channel anymore. I want to talk about Korean life. So today, if you saw the title, sort of a sad topic. It's about funerals in Korea and my experience with the funeral I went to yesterday. It was a new cultural experience for me, and even though it's a sad one, I think it's worth sharing so that other people know how to respect the culture and traditions in Korea if you happen to go to a funeral while you're here. The funeral that I went to was for a very close coworker, so my experience might be slightly different than other people's if you're not as close to the family as I was, but I think it's definitely worthwhile to just know about the tradition. As an anthropologist, it's something that I've studied all over the world: mortuary rites, funerary rites, and the way that traditions are, enacted. But as personally, I've only ever been to Christian funerals in the United States, so I don't know very much about other experiences other than what I've read. But I think it's worthwhile to still make a comparison and sort of give you some tips so that you don't feel like you're out of place or you've done something that would be rude or at such a time in someone else's life. So the first thing you might ask is what to wear. And this seems like an insignificant thing, but I think when you're trying to, not stand out or not make the wrong move as a foreigner at this moment of condolence, then I think it's important to know that. In Korea, much like it is in my experience with most American funerals, wearing black is appropriate. It's not the kind of thing where if you wore like a shirt that had a little bit of white on it, they're going to kick you out. No, but it is customary to wear black. The family of the deceased individual might wear all black hanboks, or the men would wear all black suits. They might also have a white hanbok, which depends on the tradition of the family and also the place where they're holding the funerary rites. The second thing is the location. So I've only ever been to funerals where they were held at the place of worship of the individual who passed away. In my experience, it's been Christian funerals, and they've always been held at various the churches of the individual. So whether they were Catholic or Lutheran, Orthodox, they were always held there. And then we moved after the ceremony of remembrance to the location of the actual burial or cremation, or the interring of the cremated, the urn. But in this case, it's a little bit different. Usually funerals in Korea are held at hospitals. So there's a whole sort of section of the hospital reserved for funerals, and the funerary rites, which are a 3-day process. The traditions that are currently practiced by most people here were established during Joseon period and during Confucianism, and they come from Buddhist rites primarily. So those things are still happening. Even if people are Christian, they still typically use the similar funerary practices. There's, of course, many other religions practiced in Korea, so of course those funerary rites might be different, but this is sort of a very common one. If you've watched Korean dramas, this is usually what they show as part of the funeral services. So you'll go to this wing of the hospital. Usually the family will have a sort of floor where one part of the floor will be all giant wreaths of flowers, sort of condolences. And this might seem very familiar to a Westerner. We typically give flowers and cards of condolence at a funeral. They look like wedding wreaths if you've ever seen them in Korea, very large, lots and lots of flowers on them, and usually the name of the family or some sort of message of condolence on them. They're just giant flowers. So you'll see those, and then you'll see sort of 2 other rooms on this floor. One room will be for the actual the image of the deceased person, the family who will be sitting there, and the bowing that will happen, and then the other room will be for eating. So this, I would say, is one of the parts that is really different from the culture that I grew up in, so I'll explain a little bit. When you come to a Korean funeral, you should bring an envelope, and I have them to show you. So this is, take it out of the packaging so you can see a little bit more clearly. This is sort of typical white envelope that you would see in Korea, but it has the black writing. This is Chinese, not Korean, and this is for death. If you go to like a Daiso, or this is from Daiso, if you go to a convenience store to buy it, you'll also see one that has gold writing that has 3 words in Chinese, and that's for weddings. So they are different. The funeral hall will provide these if you don't, but I just wanted to get it because I make sure I had the right thing just in case they didn't have it. I wasn't sure, and since it's my first experience, I wanted to do the right thing. So you will fill this with amount of money. So in Western funerals, we typically don't give money to the family. That's not usually part of, unless you're immediate family and you're paying for the actual funeral expenses, usually it's giving flowers and messages of condolence, and sort of notes and letters and that kind of thing. But this one, for a Korean funeral, you have to bring money. It's sort of just like Korean weddings, and the typical sum is Oman won, which is like 50,000 won or $50, and you should if you can, get a $1 $50 bill. The same for weddings, not like $5 $10 bills. It's considered like good manners to bring that one bill. So you'll put it in here, you'll write your name on the back. The traditional style is to write it vertically, just like this, the way this is written in Chinese, so it's sort of coming from a Chinese written tradition. I wrote my name actually vertically, but I wrote it in Korean and then English, and also my school because I'm a coworker of a family member. So you will give this to a member of the family who will be standing with the box of to put the envelopes in. You will give them this, you will sign the guest book, and then you will go into the room where you have to pay your respects. So there's a very large photo of the deceased individual, there's many flowers, and there's the family sitting on the floor. You will bow to the deceased individual. If you are Buddhist, you should make the full bow to the floor, like forehead on the floor, and stand up twice to the individual. If you are Christian, you can just bow 90 degrees. I did the full bow because it's what my coworkers did, and even though I'm not religious, I'm very comfortable to pay the respects in the most respectful manner that my co-teacher would have thought. So I did the full bow, and then you bow to the family, which is typically the eldest male in the family, and then in my case, it was several of the men of the family. We bowed to them once, and then one full bow and then one half bow, like 90 degrees. And then we left and we got to spend time with my co-teacher whose mother had passed away. You go into the restaurant and the family, so typically the women of the family are feeding you and bringing like seaweed soup and rice and a couple of side dishes. Very simple, but it's part of the grieving process. Typically there is like alcohol involved, and I think a lot, like if you come from an Irish tradition where there's a lot of drinking and things like that, is sort of a way of remembering the individual. That definitely does happen. For me, it was a very emotional time. I'm very close with my co-teacher, and it was a lot of crying and a lot of talking about her and things like that. And it was a very emotional time because there was not very many people there, and we were able to really be with her. If you don't know the individual so well, it might seem like a very cold, like you just eat and leave kind of situation. But I think it all depends on your relationship with the family members and whether or not you can grieve with them, their comfort level about grieving, things like that. And I think that experience is really going to be individual. But it is, appropriate to eat at that time, and eating is such a huge part of Korean culture and such a way to, I think, to alleviate pain and sadness. My personal experience, I think, when my grandparents all passed away when I was young, I just remember just sitting and not doing anything and not having a purpose and just feeling sad. But I think that process of feeding people and moving and talking to them is probably a very cathartic experience. The experience for the family happens for 3 days. There's 2 days of sitting and receiving condolences and mourners, and then the 3rd day is when the funeral will happen. This is similar, I think, to the experience of like sitting Shiva, even though it's 7 days. This is just sort of like a longer period, and of mourning for the family, and they're all together. They eat, sleep, live at the funerary home. So I think it's just important to know about this experience if you go there, and if you have to visit a funeral while you're in Korea or something like that happens. While this is, I'm sure, not understanding the entire experience, and I don't have the Korean perspective on the funeral proceedings, I just wanted to share this information, and I hope it's valuable to someone. If you come and you're really confused, what do I do? How do I do it? You want to make the culturally sensitive gestures of condolence. So I hope this is helpful, and I'm going to try to make more videos about traditions and things that you might encounter while you're in Korea, and things that I find really valuable. So I hope you guys have a great day. I'm sorry this was a sad topic, but please follow my Instagram if you want to see lighter-hearted things and what's been going on with my life in Korea. Bye, everyone.